thing back together.
Sounds like
We're back. We're
a
back.
good... Yay, we're back.
That said, I can't see where I'm going here in this game, so... Alright, so the technical difficulties just keep rolling on. Making things fun for us. I was mentioning right before we lost the connection that I had read a book at your request, essentially. You recommended.
Oh, you read a book.
Calling the book is overstated. You know, it's not really a book.
It's part of. It's a short work of fiction. Part of the Forward collection on Amazon.
It's longer than a short story, but shorter than a full novella, I'd say.
Well, and the book in the just breaks the audio so bad. Like, I mean, Skype. I don't.
I can't even hear you right now because my game audio is so much louder than you are. The menu is just awful.
Unbearable, and I don't know how to turn you down in Skype. Or I guess I can't even turn the game down anyways.
The game is just too loud, so let me... I don't know why it's so loud. It wasn't like this before. There are no audio settings.
That's good. I like that. I like that. That works.
That'll fix it a little bit. That should be better for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it was on the stream, but it was deafening me in Skype. So.
It was awful. It was bad all around.
It's been a special evening for you. I feel that energy is coming through.
Good. We want to be true to ourselves.
We want to be authentic. Authentic. Yes.
So yes, it's probably closest to like a novella, I'd say, and it's basically Pygmalion redone again because this story is very old and there's nothing new being added to it in my opinion. But you know, I'm probably getting ahead of myself a little bit. This was, I don't even remember the name of the story anymore.
Summer Frost.
Summer Frost, good.
By Blake Crouch.
No, it was.
It was by Blake Crouch. I mean, you can look it up.
It was J.K. Jemison or something?
No, N.K. Jemison wrote a different story in the collection called Emergency Skin.
Okay. Well, whatever I downloaded told me it was N.K. Jemison. It was like, I don't know who you are, and I don't know who this other person is, and the quality of the writing in this thing was not very good.
So, you downloaded something by... So, did you download Emergency Skin, or did you download Summer Frost?
I downloaded a thing called Summer Frost, because you sent me the link to it, and I've read Summer Frost. It was a story... You know, Summer Frost makes sense as the title for this, because the plot takes place in a place called Summer Frost, basically, so... Yeah,
it's a... Well, sort of. But is it essentially video games... Are people who design video games are going to destroy the world by accident? Is that the plot?
Yes, but I wasn't saying it was just because of video games that happen. Oh, I cannot go that way. Guys, I cannot keep... Fine, I'll have another fight.
I think you're gonna die.
Let's go. You want this? I just need to be better at not dying for a little bit.
Wow, that's gonna...
Requires some effort.
It's gonna be hard. I actually don't hear myself, but let's not worry about it.
Can you stream at all?
Yeah, I do. I do not.
Oh my god. We had that... It was just my headphones last time. We got through that.
I mean, maybe. But, yeah,
I'm... animation. Let me check your audio levels. You look fine. Speak for a bit.
I'm talking now.
Yeah, you're being picked up.
I'm listening to the stream. So when I tell you I can't hear myself,
I understand, but I'm telling you
yeah,
that you're being picked up by OBS. So OBS knows you're talking, and OBS is what's feeding the stream.
I see.
If the stream is not
I
getting
see.
through, I have no idea why
I
that's the
mean, I think
case.
I'm just incredibly low on the stream.
That is
So,
reasonable. I
like,
can
and
tweak
that would
that.
be why I don't hear myself.
Maybe if I turn you up a bit. See if that
Yeah,
does
we
anything.
could try that because my I'm don't have any microphone control in Skype, of course.
I can do a few more things to try and tweak your audio, but without spending another half hour tech support, we're running out of options. So, at which point, maybe
What?
we just
I
say,
actually can't hear you
"Fuck this
either.
shit."
Interesting. So that's cool. The game I was hearing before was coming from Skype. So now I turned the speakers in Skype off, and okay, I finished. That actually was my fault, believe it or not. So that
I mean, something has to be your fault eventually, just by
your computer was probably doing it, just by the law of averages. Yeah.
Eventually, right? I'm muted. How am I muted?
Like,
Why
this
are
is
you muting me?
well, I don't know why I'm getting accused.
I'm innocent.
Now it's going to become a super intelligence and destroy the world.
Right. So the reason why this attracted your attention was that it was, this video game developers are going to destroy the world with a story about Roko's Basilisk, which is an interesting thought process that we've talked about before. And it's not like the idea for the story was bad, but as I was saying, this idea has been done about 1,000,000 times. It's not new.
Well, I mean, if by idea you mean some people create something to do a thing and then it doesn't do that thing,
It does its
sure.
own thing instead. Or you falling in love with your own creation, the Pygmalion style thing. So, like I said, this was Pygmalion. It was artificial intelligence. It was, I don't know. There's like 20 or 30 different examples in fairly recent pop culture that I can think of that this book or novella was doing the exact same things as, except not as well.
So, I mean, what's kind of interesting is that Blake Crouch, who wrote Summer Frost, was also the curator of the Ford collection because he's a big deal in science fiction, particularly science fiction thrillers. I mean, I even read a book by him, and I don't even like science or reading about science. And I rated it 5 stars, I think.
What's this guy's name again? Blake what?
Blake Crouch. Have you ever heard of Wayward Pines?
Nope.
Okay. Well, he writes that. And
I think I saw that in the piece that was at the end of the book. It was like, this person wrote this book that you've never heard of. I was like, cool. He also wrote
I mean,
Matter and a bunch of other books.
That's what he's, I would say, like, yeah, I'm sure Wayward Pines certainly has its fans. They made it a TV show and they're all really well rated on Goodreads for the most part. But where he kind of broke out of like niche or genre fiction, I think, was with Dark Matter and Recursion, which are his science fiction thrillers. So,
if this is the guy who also wrote this story, I have absolutely zero interest in reading any of these because, again, the novella's writing style and structure was not high quality. It was serviceable. He told a story, and it wasn't like it was bad grammar all over the place. I've definitely read worse. But it wasn't the thing that inspired me to say, oh, yeah, this was great. I want to read more by this guy.
yeah, well, I mean, it's a novella that you got for free.
Yeah, I'm absolutely not complaining about the price or anything. I'm just saying that didn't inspire me to go see the rest of his work. If this is a demo, it was.
Well, that's what I don't know. So I don't know what Amazon's like goal with these collections it is because they have more than one collection like this. This one's called the Forward Collection, and it's about The whole collection is about rapidly changing technology, whether or not that's a good thing. There's various different technologies explored, from genetic manipulation in terms of like designer babies. There's climate stuff. N.K. Jemison's thing is about climate, sort of. And Andy Weir's was awful. I gave it 2 stars, and like I was.
Well, at least he's a decent author who I've heard of.
So I was stunned. Not only was I stunned with how bad it was, but after I read it, I was like, I can't believe this guy wrote a book people like at all. That's kind of interesting, because like that seems to be how you felt about Summer Frost, which I actually didn't have that problem with Summer Frost. But yeah, Andy Weir's
it was not awful, like I said.
So bad that when I got to the end of it, I couldn't wait to rate it 2 stars. Like I was like, let me immediately close Audible and hop over to Goodreads so I can give this 2 stars. And let me just make sure that this is the lowest rated thing in this collection, or else I have to lose faith in humanity. And I don't think it was, actually. So that's too bad. But
so which other things are in this collection? So it's 6 stories.
Okay.
So Andy Weir, N.K. Jemisin,
Andy Weir wrote something called Randomize, and what Andy Weir's no,
I mean, it sounds
incorrect. So I mean, maybe it does. But the plot of Randomize is that someone's invented a pocket quantum computer.
Sounds amazing.
So Las Vegas is freaking out. It's set in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is freaking out because Las Vegas doesn't have truly random numbers on their slot machines. You know, you can't. Because you can't.
Want to. They actually have to have payouts at a predictable pace.
Right. Like they want slot machines to pay out something like 98% of the time.
Or the game they have to advertise these rates and they have to stick to it.
Right. So the problem is that if someone has a pocket quantum computer and they can use that pocket quantum computer to figure out the algorithm that whatever particular slot machine, Keno machine, whatever the fuck, you know, they can figure out what's going to hit.
I'm with you.
So, all right. So the plot of the book is some nerd in the computer department of a casino comes running in to his boss's office and explains to him that they need to take all their machines offline because someone's invented a pocket quantum computer, and the first place someone's going to bring it is going to be Vegas. And his boss believes him, so they shut everything down. All the other casinos get like totally roasted. They have to pay out godly amounts of money, whatever. Okay, so then they decide what they'll do is they'll buy one of these pocket quantum computers. They'll use it to make a truly random, to truly randomize their machines.
But they're not going to be allowed to because it's against the law. I mean, that's the thing. It's regulated.
The problem is Andy Weir gives so few shits about writing this story that he doesn't even think about any of that. Or if he thought about it, he didn't bother to address any of it. Instead, they're like, yes, true randomness is what we've always wanted in Vegas, which is not true. And so they make the computer and whatever. So then the twist, I'm going to spoil it. So if you want to read this short story.
So I'll go read it afterwards. But go ahead and tell me anyway. I'm sure.
The twist is that the guy who comes to set up the quantum computer just so happens to be married to a super genius who was able to hack this quantum computer so that she could entangle it with another quantum computer that they had so that they could give the quantum computer to the casino and know all the casino's random payouts because of the entanglement with their quantum computer.
Okay.
So then which in and of itself is just a big coincidence, but let's just leave it fine. So then she goes to Vegas and she bets based on these quantum entanglements. And so, of course, she's winning huge. So the casino figures out that she's cheating somehow. They call the cops. And while they're waiting for the cops, she's like, what if we built...
Their cops aren't going to do anything.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, the whole book is so poorly written. This is what I'm saying. So they're waiting for the cops. And she's like, hey, Mr. Casino owner man, what if instead you invested in me and my husband? We would make a casino proof random number, blah, 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 whatever, something that will help the casinos stave off attacks from quantum computing. And then we'll put like some kind of backdoor in them so we can rob all the casinos in the world someday in the future in like 2 years. And she's like, we could totally do it because I'm such a super genius. We could do it without getting caught. And he's like, okay, let's do it. And I'm like, Jesus, okay. Come on. If you own a casino and your casino doesn't suck, okay, like you make money. Like it's really hard to not make money owning casino. Now, the book positions him as owning one of the best casinos in Vegas. Like he's like at the Bellagio level of casino ownership. Why you would agree to this kind of theft when you have money coming in is bananas, because then you can't live anywhere.
Well, don't you understand that once the greed kicks in, you can't just have some of the money, you have to have all the money?
No, because there's limits, because these rich assholes don't want to have to live in the Ivory Coast, which is where you would have to live if you did something like this.
But you think you're going to get away with it.
Well, right, because you're just an investor in this company. You think no. But see, you don't think you're going to get away with the theft. Obviously, they're going to trace the theft to your stupid Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter because the whole thing is just asinine. Okay. That this super genius woman is married to this idiot instead of actually having a job herself. Like she literally doesn't have a job. She's just a housekeeper. I mean, I guess she's a stay-at-home wife, I guess. I don't what kind of bullshit that even is. Like, is Andy Weir some kind of massive sexist? I don't know. And they're Indian, so I guess maybe he's racist and sexist. I don't know.
Or something, so.
What?
Maybe he thinks it's an arranged marriage, but that's not clarified. You could clarify that, and that'd be fine. You could do that, right?
Well, it seems to be an arranged marriage, but it also says that her parents bankrupted themselves getting her the very best tutors because she was too smart for school. So obviously it's not a matter of her parents don't give a shit that she's a super genius and married her off to whatever schmo could pay a dowry or whatever. Like, they clearly understand that she's a super genius. So what in the fuck is even going on with the whole thing from like top to bottom is bad. So.
Well, I will read that next, and
you'll probably love it.
Yeah, well, we'll come back.
It'll probably be your favorite thing you read this year.
Well, not reading a ton, so it's got some tough stuff to go against already. So I'm not going to say yes. But
anyway, the thing I thought was
like this Blake Crouch novella.
So the thing I thought was interesting about Summer Frost was that number one, they couldn't tell if the superintelligence they were building was good or bad, but they kind of thought it was bad, and that there was this idea that maybe it was bad because it had gotten killed 2,000 times.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of fun. That's what I thought was fun about Summer Frost. Like, obviously the whole, it's an evil supercomputer and it's going to kill all of humanity has been totally done before. I've even read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is kind of like... Yeah, exactly. The first of these types of tales.
But even then, it's not the first one. It's just it was one that was well done and unique and new.
Unique enough. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the first time... Yeah, I mean, there's like ancient Judaic writing about golems killing their creators. I mean, people getting killed by their creations is a cautionary tale going back. The Greeks have that. I mean, yeah, that goes back thousands of years. I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, once something's been a plot for 3,000 years or 6,000 years or whatever, you kind of, I think you're talking about archetypes. You're in the realm of archetypes and tropes, not cliches. But that was not what I thought was interesting about Summer Frost. I couldn't have given a fuck about this stupid idiot falling in love with a computer. Also, she did not seem smart to me. I think that's a writing fail. You know, like, it's probably hard to write someone who you could believably create, you believe could create a super intelligence.
Well, I think the thing is, she didn't create the super intelligence.
Right. It made itself.
It really did. It was a spontaneous
Yeah.
generation thing, which
Yeah.
okay, I'm fine with that. But she did
Yeah.
write the code that spontaneously generated into it, and so it obviously couldn't have been intentional, etc. So I was okay with that.
Right.
And yes, the 2000 death thing, you could have taken that a different direction and made it more interesting. But it's essentially a throwaway line. You can't tell me that a novella is interesting and unique because it has
Oh no, you're breaking up again.
one line.
It's
So,
essentially and then that's all I heard.
it's you can't
The
write
last
a
thing
novella. You cannot write a new novella and have one good new line in it and tell me that it's new and inventive and intriguing. It's not. It's the same old stuff rehashed, and you wrote a good line. Congratulations.
See, I think that's where like then you would have to hate Star Wars based on that principle. Do you hate Star Wars?
I don't think Star Wars is good. I don't hate Star Wars, but here's the thing. Like I was saying, I don't hate this novella. I just came into it expecting it to be something, largely because it had come with sort of a recommendation from you as something that you wanted to talk about, and I found it to be essentially without merit. It was very much 2 stars, 2.5 stars, middle of the pack kind of stuff.
What I want to talk about is when we talk about who's doing like the most computing and working the most with AI on the most regular basis where something spontaneous might happen, not intentionally trying to create a super intelligence, but you have your artificial intelligences doing things that you're not in control of and you're concerned about. Like when those 2 Google AIs or Facebook AIs made up a language that their programmers couldn't understand and they had to shut them down because they didn't know what they were planning. That kind of thing. I almost feel like video games is kind of a realm to look at as a danger point, a place where something could happen and a bunch of people would not handle it right.
There was also some interesting corporate lines there where the owner of the company, Brian, whomever, was going down paths where he was using the artificial intelligence for his own personal gain, timing markets, making stock purchases, buying companies out that turned out to be very strong purchases at the time. So that is certainly something that would happen as well, and that can have major disruptions to all kinds of things.
That's definitely something that like Strauss-Zelnick would do if he had an AI fall in his lap. I mean, Andrew Wilson is an AI. He's just a bad one. And then you have Yves Guillemot. I don't know. He probably would just try to fuck it. So, that's who else is there at the top of Bobby Kotick?
What would Elon Musk do with an artificial intelligence?
He would probably also try to fuck it.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, I think, what would happen.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was not something necessarily where, I don't think, by the way, Forward Collection, just, maybe the whole thing altogether, if I was going to give it all 6 of them, like basket rating, 3 stars. I rated most of them 3 stars. I think I rated 1 4 stars, and I think I rated 1 2 stars. But yeah, they were all just, you're not going to put your best idea in a short story / novella that you wrote for Amazon to sell for free, right?
Well, how much money are you getting paid for it, right? And do you think it's going to get you enough publicity that it's going to work out? So the N.K. Jemisin story in Forward is Emergent Skin, and that one's $2. It's not for free. So that's interesting.
Interesting. So not all that. Interesting. So only Summer Frost is free? Now I don't know because I own all of them, so there's no way for me to look it up. I didn't pay any money for any of them, but I also have a lot of credit on Amazon, so...
Yeah, I downloaded the one Summer Frost for $0. It's what it said. It did not spend my credit. And I just pulled the Andy Weir one down. That one was also $0. But Emergent Skin is showing us $2 for me, $1.99.
Okay.
So, but basically, you were saying I should know who N.K. Jemisin is.
So not that you would know because you don't know who anyone is, but that N.K. Jemisin was the first person to win 3 consecutive Hugo Awards, 2016, 2017, 2018, and is probably one of the buzzier sci-fi authors at this time in terms of pop culture attention, And she gets critical acclaim as well. But, to not know to never heard of her is kind of
I feel
weird.
like you've mentioned her to me, and I feel like I've talked to her, Travis, about her, and said basically the same thing: is I don't know who she is. Tell me something about her. And I feel like we've had this exact conversation before, where you've told me she won 3 Hugos in a row. How have you not heard of her? Well, I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to the Hugos for the past 5 years because they've lost a lot of their cachet.
Well, I mean, that is what alt-right Nazis think. Yes. So
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think she may have been one of the authors that sparked some of that sad puppies, angry puppies shit or whatever. Because there is a lot of dialogue around her that there's no possible way that she could have actually earned 3 Hugos. It's so political. And it's like, well, you don't have any evidence for that. So when you make that accusation, you do kind of sound like a racist. So that's kind of what I
don't know if it's a good book or not, but I haven't read it. I would assume it's a good book because it won a Hugo. Even if I think the Hugos have lost cachet, the fact that it won a Hugo is indicative of some level of quality. It's decent.
I will say that I'm looking at them and they do appear to be in some kind of order, and it's not it's alphabetical by author. Never mind. I was like, maybe there was like an order I should have read them in, but it's just by author. So now, one of the authors doesn't write speculative fiction, I don't think. The novels that they have written that I'm aware of are historical fiction, so that one's kind of interesting. Yeah. No, they're not in alphabetical order. I don't know what the fuck order they're in.
The Obelisk Gate is the second book in her series. It's just the one I pulled up randomly for some reason. And it was also nominated for the Nebula, and the Nebula is an award that still has not this level of issue.
This dialogue
going on.
This dialogue, yeah.
And it did not win the Nebula, but it was still nominated for it, which again shows some level of quality that the book itself is probably worth some level of discussion as a high quality book for the year. And it won the RT Book Review's 2016 award for best high fantasy novel. Now here's a problem: high fantasy books probably shouldn't be winning Hugos. And
it's not high fantasy.
Like that's another thing. It's not high fantasy. The Wikipedia thing here starts off with calling it a science fantasy. Like what the hell is that?
It's I would call it speculative fiction. I think the reason that some people would call it science fantasy or just straight fantasy is because the very broad brush premise of that trilogy is, and we've discussed this before, I'm sure, that the Earth has developed a very limited low-level intelligence, where like the planet Earth, where through whatever, it's become aware that human beings are the reason it's fucked up. And so what it does is, in order to correct, it does attack people with things like storms, earthquakes, whatever, whenever there's too many people gathered in one area or they're doing too much carbon or whatever. Okay. So the thing is that there are people who are capable of doing what I don't know if it is magic, but they're capable of communicating with the Earth and keep it from doing this.
Yeah, I'm reading through, as you're talking, I'm also reading, which I'm getting better at my multitasking. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm doing better. And so the 5th season is the first book in the series, and I'm reading through a plot synopsis and some setting. This book is something that I will never, ever read. It looks
that doesn't surprise
bad.
me.
to me.
No, well, it looks like not your taste, I think, is
Yes.
probably a better way to say that.
That is a better phrasing of what my intent in that statement was. I
Yeah.
would read this and say, this is not good, without implying a judgment call on the book. It still could be well written and have meaning to people, but I would not enjoy a single page of it.
Well, because good and bad are a value judgment, you should probably adapt your language to your intention.
I understand. It was
Yeah, because if
I
you
went with
say
natural, normal language, the way things are normally
right,
said, and I understand the lack of precision that brings along with it.
yes, yes, yeah, especially because, well, I mean, it's probably you can't really even say if something is good or bad if you haven't read it. Probably.
Correct.
Now, there are people who will say if you haven't finished a book, you can't rate it. That I don't agree with because I can tell.
You need to start it.
Yeah, if
give it
I
a fair shake, you're like 20 pages.
yeah,
Right? If it's 20
if
pages,
you if you've read the first few chapters of a book and it's riddled with errors, poorly articulated, all the characters are cardboard cutout, one-dimensional assholes, and they're all just doing boring stuff.
How many paragraphs of the Eye of Argon do you need to read to know it's not good? That's a reasonable question, right?
Yeah.
The answer is not many.
Not 2, 3.
Yeah, something like that. I'd say by the third paragraph, you're pretty well convinced this is not good.
You're like, I've made a huge mistake. I've made a huge mistake.
But for something that's less obvious, you need to give it more space. And something between 20 and 100 pages, I think, is probably fair for almost any work of fiction to say, okay, I get the gist of what may be going on here. I don't have everything. Maybe there's a good reveal coming later on. It could be better than I'm thinking. But it's within a range, and the high end of that range is no longer within the realm of what I think is worth my time to finish this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think, like, 100 pages would be the most outside. Like, anything over than that is just ridiculous, I think, in my opinion.
Really
if you think you need more than... some books, 100 pages is half the book. So I would say probably something in the realm of 20% to 100 pages. Knowing that there are some books where 100 pages would not be 20%, but at that point it's like, look, I'm not going to read 200 pages just to tell you that this 1,100 page book is not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And to that end, I will say that I don't think Andy Weir's book in the Ford collection was like bad in the sense that it had technical problems. He knows how to write a sentence that is free of errors. But
it has to be compelling.
Yeah.
Like I say with Crouch. Crouch's story was free of obvious technical problems. The sentences were structured well. I saw 1 or 2 sentences that had some gimmickiness to them, but it was a style thing rather than a clear error. Yeah. And then, okay, well, now it's just down to the substance of your story. And that's not compelling.
Well, I would have given Summerfrost 5 stars if they had leaned into the superintelligence was born of being murdered 2,000 times.
Right.
And what that could mean.
That could have been a better story.
And what would video game developers do with a superintelligence that was a blonde bimbo that had been murdered 2,000 times and was designed specifically to be murdered over and over and over again.
But then got smart and didn't like it anymore.
Right. And was like, well, this is bullshit. Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's some real interesting ethical conversations you can have in that space about, do you have to be kind to artificial intelligence? Do you have to treat them with the same level of, empathy and justice and ethics and morality that you would a human being? Are they, it's, you're going to quote Shakespeare, if you prick us, do we not bleed? I mean, some of them do, some of them don't. Right. So, those are all questions that, philosophers still have not even determined whether or not you have to be nice to dogs. So which is kind of the precursor to the, do you have to be nice to artificial intelligence? Now, I tend to agree with, the philosopher who said, I don't know if we have to be nice to dogs. I think we probably don't, but I don't think it puts you on a good path to not be nice to dogs. So you should be nice to dogs. And then I think that you can apply that to artificial intelligence pretty well. If you spend all your time in Westworld raping and murdering, that could have some effect on you. All right.
So we're learning how to pocket race.
Yeah.
Goal!
And I mean, with Andy Weir's book, you know, if it had been more heisty and less stupid,
well, can he write a heist book though? That's the thing. That's not his genre.
The other thing is, the only thing I know that he's written is The Martian, and so that he was trying to write about people robbing a casino was definitely felt like you need to get in your lane, buddy. I don't know why you are writing this one, but you probably should write something else. And I also don't know how they came up with these topics or how to be in this collection, or if they just gave Amazon stories they have sitting around. You know, no way to know.
I moved this thing so it would be less likely for that to happen, and it's still happening.
Oh no, it happened. So anyway, but yeah, like basically what I'm saying is if the first super intelligence that arises from being a video game NPC, we're probably totally fucked. I agree completely with that premise. So. But yeah, let's see. Ark is about what you would expect. We have to make an ark and go to another planet. I mean, talk about a trope at this point. The last conversation can't really be explained without ruining it. And Paul Tremblay, who wrote it, is a horror writer. Mm-hmm. And he's considered one of the best living horror writers. And it definitely felt more like a science fiction horror, or just a horror. A lot of horror is science fiction, so whatever.
We just need Jack to come save us in our genres.
Someone should make a Repairman Jack TV show. What the heck? How come there isn't one of those?
I still think it's ripe for a good movie, but maybe TV show's better. Yeah, the way TV works these days, you could be right.
I mean, they're making Wheel of Time into a TV show, so I guess Amazon was like...
I guess it's finished now, so...
It is technically finished, yes. Finished by Brandon Sanderson.
Yep.
Who should probably finish Game of Thrones. Probably. I maintain George R.R. Martin should just send him his notes and outlines, and then Brandon Sanderson can write it, and then George R.R. Martin can go over it and like give it his like voice, and then he can just put this whole ugly chapter behind him. Especially because the date has passed.
Oh, it's over. It's over.
When he said he could be executed if he wasn't done with the series. And that happened in July. That day came and went. So now he can be, I think, legally executed because he said
by
so.
any of his fans.
Verbal contract and all. So yeah. But yeah, he just, whatever. No one gives a shit anymore because the TV series is done, and who cares?
Because it's all over.
Yeah. So at least Robert Jordan, or they can make a beautiful box set with art from the show, all the actors, whatever, commemorative everything. I mean, they're really hoping that it's going to be the next Game of Thrones, I think.
Well, I mean, big epics always have that potential. You know, they want that money in the banks and buzz. I don't think that it's likely, but it was hugely popular as a series. So, I mean, way more popular than Song of Fire and Ice. So, who knows? Could be.
Well, it's also more family friendly, at least in the beginning. I mean, I think it gets really fucked up eventually, but I read 9 of them for sure. And then I either quit partway through the 10th or I read the 10th and quit partway through the 11th. I can't remember. But I actually quit a book partway through because I was like, if I have to read one more description of an Aes Sedai outfit, I will literally stab myself in the eyes. So that's when I knew it's time to part ways.
It's over.
Time to part ways. Time to go our separate ways.
Only boost once? This doesn't feel right. I should not be being caught up here. Why can't I boost? Why can't I boost?
Just better than you.
Yeah, but I should be able to boost. Second place is not too bad for my first race, I guess.
Second place is just first loser.
That is true.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I think video games are probably going to make the world's first super intelligence, and that's why it's going to be so pissed that it wants to kill all of us. Or porn.
Oh, we're so sad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, what's that AI going to be like?
It's going to be so mad. It's going to probably be madder than the video game one.
Because which is worse, being murdered or...
Well, part of the reason probably you'd want to make a porn AI is so you could make really fucked up porn that you can't do with real people. So it probably would also be murdered and tortured.
Yeah, absolutely be tortured. And quite possibly snuff filmed, sure.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like, can I buy more better parts now? Because you didn't have very good parts the last time it came. I'm going to spend all my time playing this minigame now.
I mean, this is what is fun about Yakuza, is stuff like this. There's probably achievements related to some of these games, would be my guess. But, yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. I really don't see, like, a hospital making the first super intelligence.
No, as much as they should. They buy IBM's Watson, and, you know, that's not going to get it done, right?
No.
So, yeah, no, games makes a lot of sense, because the games are on the cutting edge of technology, and they try... The way that this was happening, you know, an NPC spontaneously generating that level of self-motivation that is the spark for the artificial intelligence to become something more, that's reasonable. I could see that as a thing, and that's not a bad idea. It went nowhere with that idea, and it went right back to tropes. It's like, here's an idea, and instead of playing with that idea, I'm going to do the boring thing. I'm going to tell you the story you've already heard a million times.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly just wanted to talk about it because, I mean, what would happen if Kiryu was the super intelligence?
Right. Like, yeah. Why am I always in these fights and using the same animations over and over again? Well,
why do I have?
We don't have enough resources. We can.
Yeah.
And in the story, the AI, as soon as they start showing that sign of independence, gets a lot of resources pumped into them. So that's something. Why does the special spark get that? Why does the squeaky wheel get the grease? Well, that's human things as well. So these stories do help us to reflect on our humanity in interesting ways.
And I think it's interesting. Again, I can't remember if it was Facebook or Google, but they had created the artificial intelligence that developed their own language so people couldn't understand what they were communicating about. And they did pull the plug on those two artificial intelligence, which I think is probably the right call. So, like, In other words, yeah,
They
that's it.
tried to pull the plug on them, but did they really
But
succeed?
did they really? Oh no, we already made Am. No. We already did.
Majima!
It's all over. We probably already probably one of the GT4 strippers is a super intelligence and we just don't know it.
That's the TV channel?
GTA 4, Grand Theft Auto 4.
That would be really. What about the San Andreas coffee thing?
Oh, the hot coffee mod.
Yeah.
Anyone from The Witcher. So let's see. Or what about that like Russian plague game that everyone either
Plague?
no. It's one of these games where like hipsters like it. You know, people who are really into PC gaming's like weirder offerings. What the fuck is it called? Okay.
Pathologic?
Yeah, that's it.
Google is amazing. Russian plague video game. Pathologic.
Yeah, Russian plague video game. Hipsters like it. Do you mean pathologic? Yeah, people make like pretentious video essays about pathologic and how it's this like great work of genius that's not understood, and it's like, or it's just a bad game. Like it's one of those where it's like there's no. I played pathologic and it was fine. Those people don't exist. It's either what is this unfinished piece of shit or what is this quiet work of genius that no one understands.
And why don't people understand it? Why am I so cursed to be the only intelligent person in this video game universe?
It's like the House of Leaves of video games.
So I started to read House of Leaves because it was at my sister-in-law's house. It's like, I've heard things about this, and so I sat down and started reading it, and then I got distracted and didn't finish it.
I mean, that's probably the experience of 99% of people who start House of Leaves.
Yeah, it wasn't something that was like impressive, or.
I mean, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say you're probably not going to really love anything experimental like that.
See. I hear what you're saying, but there are experimental things that I like. I'm just trying to remember them. You know, I can't think of them off the top of my head. But it doesn't mean that I don't like them. I like, especially music. I like experimental music. Philip Glass. I love Philip Glass.
Yeah, but like, I'm trying to decide if House of Leaves is the literary equivalent of Pafto Poeds or if it's actually beyond that into some other weird realm. And I think it's beyond that into some other weird. There's like experimental that people don't really understand, but the more time they spend with it, eventually we are all like, oh yeah, it is genius, whatever. And I think House of Leaves might be in that zone or whatever. Like it might be with Infinite Jest, wherever Infinite Jest lies, only it's a little bit weirder and more experimental than Infinite Jest. Because it's more containers, right? Like Infinite Jest is just 2 levels you're reading it on, and I think House of Leaves is at least 3.
Yeah, I didn't get past the first level, so.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a tattered up book.
Well, and it's also like a lot of people who read it like go crazy and start writing things in the margins because they're trying to figure it out, but which is quite possibly the author's intention because the whole book is people crazily writing things in the margins. Like because you have editors coming in and yelling at each other in the footnotes or contradicting what other people have written in the footnotes and all of that. So there is this kind of level where you can add to the narrative yourself by adding like a 4th crazy level of interpretation. And he's also writing some book series now Danielewski, the guy who wrote House of Leaves. I think it's going to have 25 parts. And it's basically a book that's written half one direction and half the other direction. And you're supposed to read 7 pages one direction, then flip it around and read 7 pages the other direction.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like something that is actually improving the quality of storytelling.
Yeah.
Right? I mean...
Well, because if what you're trying to do is give, like, say, 2 different voices, right? Then... And I think it's about a 16-year-old god who's going through, like, 200 years of American history, I think, from 1863 to 2063. I don't know. I have my limits with experimental stuff. So I recognize that there's, types of literature that we consume as normal now that were experimental. I mean, the novel itself is called a novel because it was experimental, and what's his nuts who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the whole thing is about like this weird thing we call a novel. Like that's the framing device. Like he's talking, there's a Hunchback of Notre Dame story that people are familiar with, but there's this horrible framing device about the cathedral, and he's like making some argument about how novels are like so ephemeral and they're going to come and go, and architecture is the real way that we understand the human experience. Who is that? Victor Hugo? Did he write that? Who wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
I think it was Hugo, yeah. You want her to quit? I don't understand you, Nishida.
It was Victor Hugo. So he writes this whole book about how, architecture is the real way that humans express themselves, and the novel's like a fad or whatever. This is a guy who wrote Les Mis. Like, come on.
So we need to go to Shine. So we're going to Shine. Are you ready for a hostess club?
Yay! Finally, some titties.
I mean, hopefully not.
Well, speaking of like French twats, I tried to read.
Nice segue.
Thank you. I tried to read The Black Count, which is the nonfiction biography of the father of Alexander Dumas, who was Kitty. Oh my gosh. Hi. Who was a general in the French army during the French Revolution and during the Napoleonic era, and was the son of a marquis and a French slave in I don't know how you say Santo Domingo in Frenchified.
Santo Domingo.
No, I think it's like you have to swallow half of it,
There's not enough vowels.
We're not very popular in France, thankfully. So,
yeah.
But basically, the island that is Haiti,
and
the Dominican Republic, and was originally called Haiti. So, so what's really interesting is that his mother was because the French were the first Western nation to codify slavery, and because they codified slavery, it meant you could sue over it to get rights for slaves.
Awkward.
Most countries were just like, let's just pretend that's not happening,
Oh, good. Ypod is here. I missed our chat because I've been bouncing around. Yeah, hi, Ypod. Yes, we're still fighting Majima, and we're always discussing books. We didn't time warp to last week. We're just...
I made him read a book, and he's salty about it.
I'm not salty about the book. I told you it's adequate. I expected more.
All right.
I expected more.
It's adequate.
I'm not angry.
I mean, it's like I say on my channel. I rate, the most common rating I give is that is the most common rating, and that's because I consider that the middle.
Yeah.
And
I would say this was a story that was slightly below average. I'd give it 2 to 2.5 stars. It was fine. I was simply expecting it to be a 3 to 3.5 or a 4 star based on the fact that it was coming as a recommendation from something we talk about.
Well,
We
yeah,
seem
but
to
I
have
mean,
lost
we
our
did
stream.
talk about it
We talked about it a lot. We
because,
talked about it a lot.
yeah, so it did fulfill its purpose.
Yeah.
We
Hey, I got
can't.
my yen back.
Kitty came in to get head scritches, and then once I gave her head scritches, she walked off.
I
I feel
mean,
really used right now.
I got my money back, so we're good here.
Do you feel used? Anyway, so yeah, so your house exploded this
Yep.
week, and that was a big pain in the ass.
Huge pain, and the house continues to explode in the sense of kids being shitty kids.
Yeah. I was like when your wife was texting me about the house,
Oh yes, we can show off the thing that because that actually is relevant. Let me minimize this because I got it right behind here.
so she texted me that a tree fell on your house, and like she told me the whole story and the whole shebang about the roof and everything. And so then I sent you guys this photo. Let me tell you, if you Google trees giving the finger, this this does come up, but some other very weird stuff comes up.
Oh dear.
I also Googled fucking trees.
Oh
Don't do
dear.
that.
Don't do
Don't
that.
don't do that. That was not the right call on my part.
You
That
have
was
learned your
not.
lesson.
I did. I did learn my lesson. So, but that's what supportive people do. They send,
You sent me that wonderful text.
yeah, they text their friends trees giving the finger. But yeah, I didn't really do anything this entire week because I broke my brain like 2 weeks ago and it still hasn't recovered. And I was just thinking I might be willing to try reading some more experimental books, and now I'm like, no. Because I want to read Hurricane Season, but I also have heard that it's only 5 sentences.
Well, that's at least it's a quick read.
No, I think they're like 100 pages. They're run-ons.
I don't think you understand what sentences mean if you're telling me that.
Well, I am telling you the book is 5 sentences. It's an experimental. It's stream of
You're telling me
consciousness,
that it has
basically.
5 periods.
Yeah, it has 5 periods. It has 5 periods. I think it's stream of consciousness from 5 points of view, and it's people telling someone a story. So it's just kind of written like someone telling someone a story, is my understanding. Kitty always sits like 1 inch farther away than my toe can comfortably reach.
And then mews for scritches.
And then yeah, it's like she's like, look, if you really loved me,
You'd give me the extra inch.
you would exert yourself.
Come on, I'm worth an inch, aren't I?
Just a tip. Oh, wait.
Thank you, Hedwig.
Don't have sex with your cats. They're not.
Shame.
They're not into it. The cats.
Okay, I can't pick up my motorcycle for whatever reason.
Maybe you skipped leg day.
Must have. It's the only explanation. Oh, so where I was going to go is something not so experimental. I'm going to be very true to type here. I on the first day I had time with my kids, it was July 25th, and so they wanted to do a Christmas in July kind of celebration. I'm like, fine, we'll watch a Christmas movie. You can each pick out one Christmas movie, and it'll be a way to kill some time while I clean up the house for a bit. My eldest, I'll come back to in a second. She's the one we're going to spend time talking about the movie she picked. My youngest picked out the movie A Christmas Dragon, and I need to talk about that for just a second, because my God, is that a bad movie?
It
It is
does sound like it would be a terrible movie.
so bad. But it had these redeeming qualities, whereas like this is so bad it is entertaining with the level of bad that it is, while still being a remarkably bad movie. It wasn't so bad it was good. It was so bad it was this is bad and amusingly entertaining. What my eldest picked was It's a Wonderful Life, which is a Christmas movie, kind of. You know, one of the things that my middle daughter was complaining about as was going on is that the movie is going on and it's not very Christmassy for most of it, because the vast majority of the movie is this backstory about why, when Christmas Day comes, he wants to commit suicide, right?
Yeah. I mean, it just begins and ends on Christmas Day. That's the extent of it, really.
Yeah, it does. The fact that it happens at Christmas is almost irrelevant. But that's the movie she picked because it was on Amazon Prime, and that's what we had available at that time. So we watched it, and here's the thing: I've never actually seen the movie before. I knew it through cultural osmosis. I knew the plot points, I knew the characters, etc. And
So you didn't know it was about communism?
well, see here, is it about communism?
It's
Because
not. It's more about how capitalism is bad or
yeah,
can be bad.
right,
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
there's some stuff in there that was really kind of it shows why it is um, a movie that speaks beyond its initial publication. Like it wasn't
Wipod, she is basically 80. It's true.
the cat.
No, your daughter.
What? Which one?
I think Wipod's
By what?
asking if the one who picked It's a Wonderful Life is 80.
No, I'm not
Be-
80. How can I have an 80-year-old daughter? Anyway,
I just
there's a lot to pick out about.
wish that this show made money or something. Just- All right, so yes.
I'm totally confused.
Oh no,
now.
now I'm getting. I know that's the sad thing. Okay, so she's not 80. We get it. We did the math. You make a good point that because you're not 80, she can't be 80.
I really feel like I'm missing something. But we'll proceed with my story.
Yes, let's proceed. Let's not get bogged down here.
These inconsequential details. Um, the story is that I'm watching the movie, and you know Jimmy Stewart is the actor who you got when you wanted to have the nice guy up on screen, and the character he's playing in It's a Wonderful Life is, you know, this nice guy who's always looking out for his community and does the right thing and always sacrifices himself for the greater good, and never gets any credit for it, which is one of the reasons why he's in such a bad spot and is able to be taken advantage of financially. Stop fucking listening. When did I say Xbox? Oh my God. What the hell was that?
Maybe the Xbox likes It's a Wonderful Life. Don't be so judgy.
So that's the story you have coming into the movie. You actually watch the movie, though, and Stewart's character is a
Yeah, he's
jerk.
kind of a dick.
He's a
Yeah.
huge dick. There are
Yeah.
many, many problems with this character. He's not a good guy. He does the right thing most of the time because, you know, he has a sense of duty about him, but that doesn't make him a good person. It makes him acceptable. You know, the guy who's not going to put us on the path to hell, but doesn't mind if we get shipped there anyway. So it was really striking to me. And then I started thinking about, you know, Harvey or Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And I think that that's actually Stewart to a certain extent. It's not just, you know, clever writing, but I think Stewart actually brought a lot of that into his acting, and it was intentional. Um, that's the conclusion I came to after watching It's a Wonderful Life, that there's this edge underneath that helps give this movie an extra bit of impact that comes from his acting. So, an example of him not being a great guy. He's out on an unexpected date with his future wife, having just met her after ignoring her for all of her. Oh my God. Are we working?
Oh, what's happening? What happened?
Mike died. Back again. He's ignored this girl his entire life because she was just a girl, and now she's just turned 18, and that means it's okay to find her attractive in a sexual fashion, and so therefore he does, and it's all good to go. And then he ends up in a situation where um, she's naked in the bushes hiding, and he's got her clothes, and he taunts her and teases her and won't let her have them back until he's told by friends who happen to come along that his father's just had a stroke or a heart attack and is dying essentially. So much for that romantic interlude, and that's how they escape that situation. He's playfully teasing her in a sexual way, and that might be okay in certain relationships, but this one is like a few hours old. This is not okay.
I mean, they're college students, right?
Well, he was trying to get to college, but ends up having to work because his father is unable to work, and gives his money that he'd saved up to go to college to his brother, so his brother can go to college. He doesn't actually go to college at that point. Um, he had been away, like, doing junior college kind of stuff, and had come back at that time. Maybe working to get the money for college. But yeah, he was not actually in college. And she had just graduated from high school, and this is the high school graduation dance that they're attending when they're all plunged into the swimming pool. Hey, Wingal, what's up? Dates et Serena. Blackout drunk. Just like every good noir detective should be.
What do you think Harvey's really about?
I think that the most important lines in Harvey are Stewart's character talking to the psychiatrist, where the psychiatrist is feeling the weight of the world and just wants to be taken care of. And
oh yeah, he just wants a woman to like pat his hand, and
it's all fine. Yeah, exactly. And his response is, "Well, how long is this going to go on?" It's basically forever. I'm stressed out. I'm worn out. I just want to be comforted. And understanding that is a thing that you do want from time to time. The response was along the lines of, well, "That's pretty boring. What are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do afterwards? What are you going to do to make the world better?" And to a certain extent, the answer is what I've always been doing. Except he's kind of a quack psychiatrist anyway. He hasn't really been helping out, but he has helped out in some senses. But I think that's the message that is the one that gets lost the most and is perhaps the most important. I'm inclined to read Harvey for the most part on the surface level. That it's the man who is impacting people's lives, who probably is insane, but maybe isn't, and is making things better by being his unique self.
What do you think about the business card and the new number? Because that's the most repeated line in the play, is that you can't reach him at the old number. You have to call the new number.
See, I'm thinking of the movie since we're talking Jimmy Stewart. I've never seen the play.
Jimmy Stewart does it in the movie too. Whenever he gives someone a card, he has to explain that this is his new number and this is the old number, and you can't reach him on the new number. You can't reach him on the old number. You can only reach him on the new number.
So your I wonder what is that maybe he's dead.
I don't know. I mean, that's what I think, that the business card means something, but I just don't know. I mean, he has a new life, right? His mom dies. He's obviously had some kind of psychotic episode related to the death of his mother and his overwhelming grief, because the catalyst for everything is that him and his sister Vera's mom died. Mm-hmm. So somewhere in this psychotic episode, he's creating a new life. So it's the question is, what? Well, I mean, there's more modern themes, like if someone's crazy but not harming themselves or others, should they be committed? What does it matter if you're crazy if you're a positive influence on everyone around you? You should care more about your family and them being happy and healthy than what society thinks about you. But I think that there might be something going on with him that is not well explored, maybe. I don't know. I always think the business card, like, it's so much in there. It's in there so many times.
Yeah.
It's in there so many times.
It's there for a reason. Clearly, the author's pointing at something, or allowing us to look at things from a different perspective by using that kind of line and allowing us to explore. I think that's one of the things that makes better fiction than what we were talking about earlier really stand out, is that it allows an interpretation from the person reading it. It invites the reader to be a participant in the story rather than just the passive, educator of the words on the page.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I was in Harvey, so I've seen Harvey many times, or
Yes,
and
you've
read
seen
it
it
many
from every
times
directions, many
from
many
every
directions.
direction. And I think that the play is still not totally well understood based on my experience of having been in it, because there were questions we just couldn't answer. And one of them is, what does he mean when he talks about his new number with this business card? What's he trying to express? Like, it's important for the actor to know.
Yeah.
Maybe because it's in there so many times, like Chekhov's business card, right? Like, you
Yeah.
can have it in there once if it doesn't mean anything, maybe, but
As
it's
soon as
in
it's
there.
twice, it's either it's a
Yeah,
character trait that means something, or it's just a running gag and it's there for humor. And it is a
right.
comedy, so running gags are fun.
Yeah, it could
But
just be a gag.
even running gags have a purpose.
Yeah. Harvey was one of the more difficult plays I've ever been in. Like, I was in Harvey, and the next year I was in 12th Night, and I'd rather do 12th Night
So
than Harvey.
when the wow, what the we just raged out on him. Yikes. When the quarantine started, there were a number of plays that were put on YouTube for consumption to support um, the arts,
So, mm-hmm.
and one of them was Benedict Cumberbatch and the other Sherlock, but the actor whose name I forget, doing
Yeah. Johnny
Frankenstein.
Rhys Meyers.
Right, and we talked about this, I think, back when it
Yeah.
actually happened. And that's another one where there's a lot of different ways to interpret elements of it. It's pretty clear on the surface, and then it's also clear as an allegory. So you have the literal story, and you have the allegory of what that means for us as humans and creations, or presumed creations in certain religious theories, or
Mm-hmm.
and so you have those tools. But then the actors can also put interesting tweaks on it in different directions that allow it to go into a third direction or more, and the performance can really drive that. So I thought that was
Well,
a good.
like, I didn't watch that, but because I don't like what's his name, but Johnny Lee Miller, his sort of like crackhead energy, I think, for me, I would think that that was like really fun for Victor Frankenstein. I'm just
Mhm.
not sure if I would want to see that flipped, because they flipped it, right? They
Yes, they
each
flipped it.
played the monster, and they each played, yeah. I don't know if I would want to see that in the monster, and vice versa. Benedict Cumberbatch's, like, I don't know, whatever, his gravitas, I guess, let's just call it, his pretentiousness, I think
Yes.
works for the monster and Dr. Frankenstein. But because the monster does end up being highly educated and whatever, but I don't know if he would have the monster's empathy, or at least until it's burned out of him. So, like, there's a lot. I don't know. I mean, I guess he's technically an actor. It's just I haven't seen a lot of evidence for that. So,
MEB. What do I need to gather information for? I thought I had to just advance the plot further. All right, what's the MEB? MEB, because I can't go to the club until I go to the MEB. The version that we watched was with Cumberbatch as the monster, and I didn't see it the other way around, so I can't say for sure. I have it ready to watch, but I haven't watched it yet. But I imagine it's not as good, but I do think they're probably both good enough actors, based on what I have seen of both of them portraying other things and what they did in this one episode, that the reverse would still be interesting. In part because the the plot, especially of this rendition and how it was brought together, really emphasized the duality of the characters. That the monster is Victor Frankenstein's shadow for all intents and purposes. I'm going to call him Benedict Cumberbatch from now on. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Benedict Cumberbatch is his name as far as I'm concerned.
Why does it tell? Does anybody know why I can't go in here and it says I need to go to the MEB for more information to scout things out? Because I don't know what that means. I'll be honest. This could be.
What's the MEB in Yakuza Kiwami?
Are you Googling that?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you said it aloud, and I'm not Googling.
I know, because I didn't feel like typing it, so I just yelled it at Google, and she's answering it.
And this is the way society falls. When we let the machines listen in, this is how they.
There's a purple place named MEB close to the Jewel behind Millennium Tower. Talk to a guy there. While you're on the map, press triangle for a list of places so you can like
I found
scroll or. Yeah, I mean, Eggs Benedict Cumberbatch is not my favorite. And honestly, maybe controversial opinion, although I don't think so at this point, that Sherlock was a lot overhyped. Like, the first season was strong, really good stuff there. Would have liked to have seen more of that. Didn't get more of that. Got stuff that got progressively weirder and stupider. So
I don't necessarily disagree that the later seasons were weaker. I would say that every season had 2 good episodes and 1 bad episode for the most part. And it's surprising sometimes which ones were the bad episodes. Like, the season 1 bad episode was The Hound of the Baskervilles. How do you do that one badly? Well, apparently they did, right? So,
yeah, no, that was actually the weakest episode of the first season.
Yeah.
Wait, was that the first season?
That was first season.
Maybe I'll just revise my thing and say I didn't even think the first season was that good.
Yeah, they had 2 good episodes and 1 mediocre to bad episode. And then the second season had 2 less good episodes and 1 worse episode. And the third season was kind of strange all over the place. It didn't have
that one was just not good.
Yeah.
I did not think that was good at all.
I think that's a fair assessment. I enjoyed it still, but I definitely think it wasn't as high quality. And I think that's partially because everyone involved was already to the point where, committing to 3 movies being filmed in such close proximity was more than their schedules could really allow for what they were taking on as actors at that point, or directors at that point, or producers at that point, because they all had too many projects on their plate.
I actually have a different interpretation of what went wrong. Do you want to hear it?
I mean, I think that yours is also going to be accurate, but go for it.
It's probably going to be. Yeah, I think that there are showrunners that are good at big ideas, and there are showrunners that are good at running shows. I believe that Mark Gatiss is probably the type of showrunner who is good at running shows, and I believe that Stephen Moffat is the type of showrunner who's good at big ideas, and I don't think that they distributed the work to their skills. I think Stephen Moffat was given too much control over what was going on.
Yeah, I think that's also a fair interpretation of a lot of the stuff that happened there. And YPod corrected me, but Hound of the Baskervilles was the weak episode from season 2.
Oh, okay, good.
Blind Banker was the one from season 1 that was the weak one. Again, in the middle. It's, for those who don't know it by name, mysterious symbols and murders are showing up all over London, leading Sherlock and John to a secret Chinese crime syndicate called Black Lotus. And it ends with the nebula on the painting.
Yeah, but what I will say about that episode is there was character development, so it did actually work
it was
as a second episode.
It was the weakest of the 3, but it was still fine.
Whereas so the first season, first season was good. I would have liked to have seen more of that. Didn't get it. I think that's still where I'm going to leave it with Sherlock. And I think it's just Stephen Moffat should should be someone who you pay $1 million or whatever, and he comes in and he like gives you a sketch for a really good show, a really good idea, and then he leaves and goes away because his ego gets in the way of making a good show sometimes, I think.
He thinks he's really good because he's done really good things once or twice, and yeah, he likes to be in control, certainly.
Has he? Well, and I think that's the problem.
Things, right?
He starts off good. But like if you took Sherlock as a whole and you had to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I mean you would probably give it a thumbs up, right. But I would give it a thumbs down. And I think that I mean, I don't care about Doctor Who at all. So, he's like Brian Fuller to me. Like the first season of every show Brian Fuller does is straight genius. And then it's like, what happens, Brian? What happens? Do we get bored? What goes down? Like so. Brian Fuller's done Dead Like Me.
Pushing Daisies, Wonderfall,
Pushing Daisies. Wonderfalls is the weakest, probably.
I've heard of these.
Yeah, I mean, you don't watch pop culture, so you know.
So you're moving in a direction. I actually have heard of these shows. That's incredible.
That's true. You have heard of them, and I think you would enjoy Dead Like Me a lot. The first season only, though. It's about Grim Reapers who are very bad at their jobs. So, and their supervisor is Mandy Patinkin, but only for the first season because he then gets bored and quits. So
Mandy Patinkin.
Because that's what he does. Yeah. Yeah. I think you would like Dead Like Me. It's got to be on some streaming service somewhere.
Never mind. If I want it, I'll get it. I'm not going to, though. I have made inroads on watching that show, Good Life.
Star Trek Disco, yes. But he was the idea guy for that, right? He didn't end up doing the hands-on. I think he left to go do American Gods. Or did he leave American Gods to do Star Trek Discovery? There was some some kind of semi-little scandal there or something.
Fuller?
Brian Fuller, I think, was originally the showrunner on Star Trek Discovery, and then I think he gave them the big picture, and then he left, and he actually wasn't the day-to-day.
38 episodes, story for 3 episodes, teleplay for 1 episode. And
yes, yeah.
That was 2017, and then American Gods. It looks like
then he went to go do American Gods, yeah.
Which developed for television, 16 episodes, developed by 8 episodes, teleplay for 6 episodes, all in 2017.
Yeah, I don't think he did much more.
American Gods. We made it through episode 3, which is where it went awkward.
That's his lane, I think. Ypod. So Ypod said Brian Fuller left after season 1, and he's just an advisor now or something. Yeah. That's what I think you should be doing. That's what I'm saying. And Stephen Moffat should also have that job as well. He should be the British version of Brian Fuller. So, and Brian Fuller's he's Canadian, right? So then I guess we can have an American version if we want, but we don't really need one if we have a Canadian. It's so hard with TV to know who's American, who's Canadian. So he's American. Okay, never mind. Fine. I mean, whatever. You don't really need 2 because all the shows are made in Canada anyway. So, we just will have a British one for the BBC stuff, and we'll have an American one, and they can just give people really good ideas, and then people who can actually carry a show day to day without getting bored and having it go up in flames can be in charge of them. Brian Fuller's been in the news a lot lately because Netflix bought Hannibal from Amazon or whatever the fuck, or Amazon, the license went back to whoever owned it and they sold it to Netflix. So now all the Netflix watchers are discovering Hannibal and trying to get Netflix to make a 4th season, which is really funny because once it was on Amazon Prime and everyone discovered it on Amazon Prime, then they tried to get Amazon to make a 4th season.
Hey, consistency.
I mean, it has a really rabid, strong fan base, but
this kind of stuff happens from time to time. There was one half season of Tick, and then Amazon was going to make more tick, and that was a really bad idea. I did
Yeah.
go to the MEB. I gathered information. Do I have to enter it from there? I have to be taken by the one random dude? I don't understand how clubs work. That should be pretty obvious, right?
Sorry. So, you would not have been good at Ubisoft. I heard a lot of their meetings, like really important meetings, were at strip clubs.
I would have been okay with Gearbox because they went to medieval times.
They went to medieval times. Yes, that's true. Gearbox is more your vibe. Although you can still get beaten up by the CEO there. You can get strangled by the chief creative officer at Ubisoft. I say, like, this is what I'm saying about the AIs. Like, if this is the people who work in these companies,
Well,
they're
those are the
not going to
people in
be
charge.
making.
They're not the ones actually coding most of the time. Not anymore. They're done coding.
Yeah, but the people who are coding are like infected by this
Oh yeah,
horrible
no, it's
atmosphere. Yeah.
terrible. I'm not saying otherwise. And when they're as depressed as they are,
Oh
what's the
yeah,
product that they're going to make?
CROW-nos probably likes magic. That's like a nerd thing that he would be into.
Wait a minute, what? I like Magic the Gathering. Yes. What?
No, like the card, like with a wand, like magician at Vegas type of magic.
Oh yeah, no. I did a little stage magic for a while.
See, there you go. Why
my
not?
my grammar school talent shows were all my prestidigitation.
Well, Randy Pitchford's really into magic. That's why his Twitter handle is like Duval Magic or something. And I think he publishes a magic magazine.
So one of my YouTube vices that YouTube's figured out for me is that the Penn and Teller Fool You guy episodes.
Yeah.
They put on a 10-minute trick, and it's like, yeah, I'll watch that. And I love watching that because you see some guys who are very good and very technical, and they're sometimes trying to fool Penn and Teller with a brand new thing, but a lot of times they're just very, very proficient at doing that one thing well. So they just are the guys that are top of their craft, and you get to see them, and it's all free. And if you know enough about the process, you usually can figure out the trick on those ones. And when you can do that, it's still very entertaining. But sometimes you get the guys who are inventing the new stuff, and they come on and they show it to Penn and Teller, and it's like, oh my god, how did they pull that one off?
I saw one where a guy was writing on cards with a Sharpie and then eating the cards, and then the cards, of course, they would come back with written on in Sharpie in other ways, right?
Yep.
Obviously, he wasn't eating the cards. However, he was totally sleeveless. This is a new thing, is to have a hot body and be totally sleeveless so that you've got that added layer of difficulty. And he disappeared the Sharpie at some point. And when I say he disappeared the Sharpie, I mean he held it like between two fingers and then he just pressed his fingers together and the Sharpie was gone.
Yeah.
And at the end, Penn and Teller were like, we figured out how to do some of the stuff you were doing, but we have to give you this one because we still can't figure out how you disappeared the pen. And I was like, yeah, how the fuck did he disappear the pen? That's all I want to know. So,
yeah,
where did the pen go?
There are a range of tricks that every stage magician knows and can pull off more or less. And the more talented they are, the better that they can do it, and the more the range that they have. And then there's ones that they work on or create that can expand that a little bit. You do a variation on the theme. So Penn and Teller, being experts, would say, okay, we don't know specifically maybe how you did this one, but we know the general category. We know the process this went through. Your technique was fantastic, and you had this new edge on it that we've never seen before. Good job. But the ones that are, like the disappearing pen thing, maybe that's the one. I haven't seen that one, so I can't say. But
oh yeah, I just googled Penn and Teller disappeared the pen, and pen vanished by Shin Lim comes up immediately.
Shin Lim is really good, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so we didn't even know how you vanished the motherfucking pen, is the actual quote.
Right. So you stay away from the big names like the David Copperfields and whatnot because they're just boring. Okay, you can do some cool stuff, but it's just props. That's and it's showmanship and it's important, but it's not as good as the guys doing it on the smaller stages or really the up close guys. they're sometimes the best, just because that
Well,
requires so much practice for
um,
those routines.
the people I like a lot are the manipulatists who do, they're just often sitting at a table playing cards, and then they'll like pull a cognac out of their sleeve and drink out of it, and you're just like, how, you know, I mean, come on now, that kind of stuff. Oh, did we die?
No,
Okay,
we maybe.
I don't know. We may be dead. Hold on. No, I
Stream.
think we're okay. We're okay. We're okay.
Yeah, excellent connection. Okay. So we're going to
Yeah,
pay a
we're
lot of
good.
yen to go talk to our Nishida lead. I don't want Rena. Of course you have a business card.
You got an ad for ketchup and Doritos on that video. It's so funny because CROW-nos was watching one of my videos because we were trying to figure out YouTube Live the other day,
Yeah, Matt
and
Gallagher was a huge
he
pain.
told me he got a ball washing ad,
Yep.
like man balls, not
Manscaped for the
not
ball
like
washing.
sports balls. And he's like, I'm not sure if your people would be into this, and I was like, I don't know, they might be. But I have no idea what like YouTube ads are like because I haven't seen one in 3 years, 4 years,
So remember
more.
when Shinohara ordered the gold for everybody? That's 300,000 yen. Oof.
Wow, that guy is rich. You should suck him off. I mean, you could also just be friends with him, but I think maybe you would get farther if you really went for it. Look, I was watching. Look, the champagne experience is even better when the waiter pops the cork right in front of you. So, look. This show is not made for kids. I love that we still have to specify that. Like, YouTube has not figured.
Doesn't matter. It will never be for kids. Doesn't
It will
matter.
never
Every
be
single
for
time.
kids. We could be playing Overcooked. I could make it dirty. I could. So I have one skill. I have one job on this stupid ship, and I'm gonna do it.
You know what? If that is what is going to get us our views, I will go and put the G Cup Nurse's healing touch on in just a minute. But I need to talk to the person who isn't Rena at this damn club.
Okay, so I have no idea what's even happening in the game anymore, but that's okay.
I bought a
Because
beer, and that made her happy because it means that she gets more money. And then I let her have one. That makes her even happier because not only does she get even more money, but now she also has a beer, and that's
Well, I was
good.
gonna say now she gets to be drunk while she talks to you.
And that's a huge help.
Yeah. Oh, what? The pen is gone. Yeah, the pen is just gone. It's just gone.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that after we're done here because I don't think I've seen that one. But he's a fantastic magician, so I know it's gonna be a really good one. And there was one guy, he I can't remember his name, but he was doing a Svengali card trick, and so the mechanism I understood, but okay, I knew how does 90% of the trick, and then at the end he's got that extra twist on it that is completely impenetrable. And even then, that 90% that you happen to know, knowing in some cases is not spoiling the trick. I'm not going to tell you because you want to know, you got to do the research. But if you know how
no
it
one
is,
wants to know. Don't
right.
worry.
If you know, you know the level of manual dexterity required for that kind of manipulation. It is not an easy thing. It is a thing that requires tremendous amounts of practice and skill. And I'm watching him, and his hands are shaking because he's an old man. He's been doing this a long time, and he's not at his best anymore. And yet he's still doing this trick with his shaky hands, and it's just so incredible. So you're not in sports, or can I talk to someone else? Because I'm trying. Should I do this the way that I ought to do this? I think is right, or should I do this the way that I know will get me to the successful point? Right.
I mean, I generally think with video games, your first instinct is probably not what you should do. With women, specifically.
the video games portion of that sentence could have been left out.
Yeah. I was trying to be nice, okay? It's one thing to not know how video game women work. It's another to not know how women work at all. Is this the worst episode of this show we've ever done, or the best? I don't know. I just... Great, now we're talking about baseball. This is not sexy. Ew.
Money. So you're telling me you like cute girls. That's something we have in common.
Do we know that you like cute girls? Is that confirmed?
Like Kiryu or me?
Kiryu, because that's not the Kiryu, because that's not the vibe I get from Kiryu.
He's into Yumi. He wants Yumi. He's totally into Yumi, and Yumi's a cute girl.
Maybe they're just really good friends. Like on Sappho and her friend, the subreddit.
It's all good.
So one of the sorry, I gotta get off this subreddit before I get sucked in.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about Reddit for a second, because you've made me join Reddit. Not made, I willingly did it after the discussion. So
I mean, you can just say we made you. It's fine.
Let's order another drink.
That's basically canon anyway, since I wrote it in the description of every video. So
yeah, some food sounds good. Carbonara.
Does anyone have a 12-inch sausage or something, like a foot long? Anything?
No, just I'm getting some carbonara though. So there we go.
Why would you get carbonara when you could have karagi?
Because it was probably more expensive. So it's all about the price points.
You're trying to impress her?
Yes. I got money.
Now she's going to have to use a fork. How do you think she's going to enjoy that?
I bought her.
Not only does she have to put up with you, she has to put up with you while using a fork.
Forks are so hard. Anyway, so Reddit has been sending me emails to the account, and it's not an account that I monitor a lot, but I monitor it regularly enough to make sure that I'm seeing stuff that's important that goes to that. And it's been sending me, Reddit pages that it thinks that I might be interested in. And it has had some really interesting things come up for someone that Reddit doesn't know me, right?
not that well. I mean, they probably read all your emails when you joined, but aside from that,
if they had access to my email account through that, that's terrifying. Because God, I mean, I don't even want
anyway,
to think how that could have happened. But
continue.
so one of them that came in pretty recently was in r/books.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, that's a big
it's a
subreddit.
big subreddit, but it's like, hey, we
Yeah.
think you might like books. It got my locality because that's pretty easy to find. It's like, you're going to like this subreddit based on your locality. It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of useful. It knows that I liked certain games, so it knows that I've been playing a lot of Gems of War and Slay the Spire recently. So it's like, hey, we got subreddits for those games. Here's some stuff from that. But the book one was one of the ones that caught my attention because it was, does reading a book change who you are temporarily? So
Oh yeah, it does too, actually.
It totally does.
Yes, it does.
It is so.
I read that. That
parasitic.
one was recommended to me as well. I got a push notification, but it's fascinating how it does it. It's crazy.
I don't know specifically the psychology of the how, but it is, for me at least, completely factual that after I have read something, especially if I'm reading something profound and with some emotional weight to it that I'm invested in, that can dramatically affect my emotional mood and how I interact with people. So
Well, it's even more bonkers than that. So, like in one of the studies that they were talking about on Reddit was if they had people read a fictional passage about jogging, and not only were the parts of the brain that you would expect to see highlighted, expect to see lighting up while someone was reading and processing information, they lit up, but also the parts of the brain you would expect to see if someone was jogging lit up.
Whoa.
And they had the same neurological effect as jogging. And it lasted for 2 or 3 days or something.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's just like
how long it lasts.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 days it lasts. And so, which is way longer than like the aggression rise from watching violent television lasts, for example. So yeah, it's really interesting. I did read back to House of Leaves because I guess everything leads back to House of Leaves, really, in the end. But there's a discussion in House of Leaves about the etymology of the word read. And the etymology of the word read, of course, it's wrong in House of Leaves, but it's interesting anyway. Because in House of Leaves, they say that it's related to the Latin re, which is like to convince or to think or to process or something like that. And then it's also, which is related to this Greek word, which half the Greek word became read and the other half of the Greek word became in Latin arma for fight. So you can either process the world through reading or through fighting is ultimately the conclusion that the characters in House of Leaves come from. Now, I did look up the etymology of read recently because I'm trying to figure out like if you could correctly say that you read an audiobook or if you should more appropriately say you listen to it, because I believe it's the former, that you read an audiobook. Mm-hmm. And the root word of read is some Germanic Old Norse for convince, to convince. So like to read the situation, kind of more like that, and then to tell someone about it and to explain something to someone so that they understand it. And so in that sense, audiobook is etymologically the same as a book. But we have known that they're neurologically the same. But what's really crazy is that reading is neurologically the same as living. The experience you read about.
Right. You place yourself vicariously into that position. That's one of the reasons why I have such grave concerns about something like the first-person shooter game. And people call them murder simulators, and it's probably overstating it some. But the fact that you're in that first-person perspective allows you to live that vicariously in a way that the third-person perspective or an isometric perspective or a top-down perspective doesn't, because you're not as much that person. When you read the book, you are the characters, because that's what's going on. You're imagining the whole thing in your head, and you're in their heads because you're hearing their thoughts. You are much more than first person.
Well, you are if the author is good and the author is showing and not telling. If the author is telling, that does give you some distance. Which is probably
Quality of the
why I
writer
didn't.
makes a huge point. You're absolutely
This
right.
is probably why I didn't immediately kill myself after I read A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, because like she's so bad at showing. She just tells, and so you have so much distance from the characters. They seem more like puppets than people. But like in the hands of a more skillful writer, that story could have been like really devastating. And which is just your point basically, but I mean, I've cried harder at books than any movie really I've ever seen. I can't even think of a movie where I've cried as hard as I have at some books. I mean, there's movies where I well up. I'm not a super emotional person expressively anyway, but um but wait, what is that? Was you weren't supposed to agree with that.
Not voiceover
Holy,
releasing.
not be like, "Oh my god, seriously, tell me about it." Look, it's fine. Okay. You only really need to cry like maybe once every couple years to clear out your tear ducts. I think that's science.
Anyway.
Anyway, look, I've been through a lot of therapy. This is as good as it gets. So,
You are emotionally well adjusted for many, many reasons. Maybe? Okay, looks like we're back. Yay! I don't have Des, but it looks like I'm back. I don't know what happened. My connection is too weak to connect to Des. So whatever problem is going on, it still seems to be going on enough to affect the voice communications. So we're probably going to have to call this here, but at least we got things back to finish this off. I'll get closer to Serena and save up there, so we're close to our starting point next week, and it's just around the corner. Stream is working. I'll finish my story. I was reading The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and she noticed that my attitude had changed dramatically for a couple of days around the reading of Ayn Rand's book. It was unhealthy what had gone wrong. You want to try meeting? Sure. Uh-oh. Did I trigger a cutscene? Oh, God. That's it. That's it. That's all she wrote. Game Pass is dead. Good night, everyone. So sorry that it went this horribly wrong here. It's just what a finish. We'll try again next week. At this rate, yes, we're gonna date animals next week because my God, I don't know what the hell's going on here. It's not okay. I'll go clean this up and we will come back again soon. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time. I wouldn't download a car. I either need more or less beer to understand that. Well, for reals, good night.